Ever felt those butterflies before a big presentation? Or maybe a first date? I think we all have, right?
Oh, definitely.
But what happens when those feelings kind of escalate, become this like overwhelming dread that actually stops you from living your life?
Yeah.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into social anxiety using the research you provided. It's a common experience, but for some, it can turn into a really significant challenge.
And what's fascinating looking at the sources is that social anxiety isn't just, being shy. It's described as this really profound fear of judgment or embarrassment, maybe rejection.
Hmm.
And it often comes with physical stuff too, like your heart pounding, blushing, sometimes even feeling sick. It's that worry, that intense worry that makes things most people find simple, like, I don't know, eating in front of others or just making small talk feel incredibly hard.
Okay, so what's the takeaway here for you listening? Our mission today is really to unpack this sort of complex topic. We want to differentiate those everyday nerves from what's actually called social anxiety disorder.
Right.
And then, crucially, arm you with some practical, evidence-based strategies from the sources to help build confidence and, navigate social situations maybe with a bit more ease.
And linking that to the bigger picture, it's so important to understand that, yeah, while lots of us feel anxious socially sometimes, social anxiety disorder, um, that's a recognized mental health condition.
Okay.
Think of it maybe like this. Common social anxiety, that's the butterflies before a big event, right?
Yeah.
Social anxiety disorder is more like those butterflies have gone into, well, complete overdrive, and they don't really settle down. It starts significantly impacting your work, school, relationships.
That sounds intense.
It can be. And when it reaches that point, professional support often becomes pretty essential. The sources are clear on that.
That's a really powerful distinction. So for anyone feeling those overdrive butterflies, what's the first step the research points to for starting to get some control back? Is there like a toolbox we can draw from in the sources?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely a toolbox. And the journey often starts with a really crucial first step, just understanding what actually sparks that anxiety for you.
Okay.
So identifying your triggers, maybe like keeping a journal of your feelings,
Yeah.
noting the specific situations that kind of set off that anxious feeling.
Right. Mapping it out. So, okay, once you start to see those patterns, those triggers, what's the next step the material suggests? Because, knowing what scares you is one thing, but changing how you react, that can feel like a massive jump.
It can feel huge. And this brings up a really important point. A key tool here is actively challenging those negative thought patterns.
Okay.
What's interesting is how the sources highlight these thoughts, the no one will like me or I'm definitely going to say something stupid kind of thought.
Those internal critics.
Exactly. They aren't just negative. They often, surprisingly, serve as this sort of safety mechanism. Even though they feel protective, they actually keep us stuck.
Huh. A safety mechanism that keeps you stuck.
Yeah.
That's quite something. But if you're caught in those loops, just challenging them sounds hard. If they're often just guesses, like you said, how did the sources suggest we actually put them to the test in real life?
You absolutely can test them. The research suggests asking yourself some direct questions like, okay, am I 100% sure that horrible thing will happen? Or what actual evidence supports this thought and what evidence doesn't support it?
Looking for evidence.
Exactly. And the data even points towards trying small sort of behavioral experiments.
Like what?
Well, like maybe purposefully asking a question you think sounds a bit silly in a shop, or yeah, even pretending to trip slightly in a low-stakes situation, just to see that the outcome, the reaction from others, usually isn't nearly as catastrophic as your anxious mind predicts. It can be surprisingly freeing.
Wow, okay. So actively proving the thoughts wrong through small actions and building on that idea, putting yourself out there. What else do the insights suggest for moving past that urge to just avoid things?
Yeah, avoidance is a big one. Another really powerful strategy is facing fears through what's called gradual exposure.
Gradual exposure.
Right. Avoiding things feels good in the short term, gives you relief, but it actually makes the fear much stronger over time.
Okay.
So instead, the idea is to make a list. List your feared social situations, maybe rank them from least scary to most scary.
Like a hierarchy.
Exactly, a hierarchy. And you start with the easiest one, practice it, then gradually, carefully work your way up the list. It's really like building a muscle, The more you practice using your social skills, even in small ways, the stronger they become.
That makes sense. Like starting with just eye contact, maybe, then moving to asking for direction.
Precisely. Small steps building up to bigger
And we
interactions.
shouldn't forget the power of the more subtle shifts, too. The material mentions simple things like controlling your breathing, using mindfulness to just stay present in the moment.
Yes, absolutely crucial. Calming the physical response.
Or even just shifting your focus, like
Mm.
focusing outward on the other person in a conversation, asking them questions, really listening instead of being stuck inside your own head.
That shift in focus is key.
And the sources also highlight surrounding yourself with, positive, supportive people. That seems important too.
Definitely. And ultimately, it's important to remember this whole process takes time and patience.
Mhm.
As the information confirms, seeking professional help, that's a completely valid and often really essential step. If the anxiety just feels too overwhelming, you really don't have to go through it alone.
So wrapping this up, what's the main message for you listening? I guess overcoming social anxiety is, well, it's a journey, isn't it? Not some overnight fix.
Exactly. It's not really a destination. It's more about building that toolbox of strategies we talked about and then practicing them consistently.
Right.
And remember, progress, well, it isn't always a straight line. It's okay to have off days, setbacks. That's
Mhm.
normal. The key is just to keep practicing, keep trying, and maybe celebrate those small victories along the way.
Definitely celebrate the wins. Okay, for your final provocative thought today, consider this. What's one single safety behavior you rely on? Something you do to try and prevent your social fears coming true. Maybe it's avoiding eye contact or mentally rehearsing conversations over and over.
Common ones?
What if you try to let go of that one behavior just a little bit the very next time you step into a social situation? Just see what happens.